This is Tony Byrne from Real Story Group, and welcome to our latest weekly webinar. This one's on the enterprise collaboration and social software, some recent research findings of ours. Normally, this would be Kashyap Kompella, the senior analyst who leads this practice. Kashyap took ill this morning. He's going to be okay, but his voice is not up for delivering this, so I'm going to be delivering this presentation on his behalf. And personally, I'm very excited to present this research that he's put together. It's about the social and collaboration marketplace, but also really about what's going on around customers and the intersection between, on the one hand, customer needs and what's available in the marketplace. And there's a lot of interesting findings here based on some work we've done late last year and early this year. So a few details out of the way. First of all, you'll all get a copy of the deck by email. So you'll get a copy within the next 24 hours of the complete deck. Those of you who are Real Story Group subscribers, you'll have access within the next 48 hours or so to the full kind of video and audio playback. So you can listen to this on demand, share it with your colleagues on demand, and so forth. If you have any questions at all, or any comments or anything you disagree with or want to share, then please just use the questions tab, which is on the right in your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll definitely have time during the middle and at the end to take questions. If you're on Twitter, you can find us at Real Story Group, and you can see the hashtag on the screen here, which is RSG Webinar. So let's look at the agenda for today. Here, a second. Going to be covering first collaboration and social software trends in the enterprise, what's going on with respect to use cases, and of course everybody's excited about cloud and mobile. And some interesting implementation trends that we've uncovered. Then we'll look at the marketplace, what's going on with vendors, which ones seem to be doing a good job serving their customers, and then we always like to conclude with what we call a reality check, which is sort of what's going on in the marketplace as a whole. So that's been the agenda for a quick half hour together. And once again, if you have any questions or any comments at all, just use the questions tab in your GoToMeeting control panel on the right. A little bit of background if you don't know about Real Story Group. We're an analyst firm. We cover digital workplace and digital marketing technologies. We're the only analyst firm that we know of that's exclusively customer focused, which means we work completely on behalf of you, the technology buyer and user. We've been doing this for 14 years and have had 3,000 customers in 50+ countries, and invite you to learn more at our website about becoming a subscriber if you're not already. These are the different technologies that we cover, and today we're really focused on what we call the red line, enterprise collaboration and social software, though obviously it's going to intersect with other sorts of digital workplace technologies, including portals and ECN, SharePoint, mobile. You know, there's clearly a broader picture here, and this our famous sort of subway map tries to give you that broader picture of what sort of vendors cover which kinds of technologies. I won't go into great detail about this. This is the latest version of our map incident, which is going live later today. You can download it at realstorygroup.com, vendor map, and we'll have a subsequent webinar just explaining a little bit more about this. But if this is a resource for you, then feel free to just download it from our website and then print it out at your leisure. So what's going on in collaboration and social software space? Let's talk about, first of all, some enterprise trends. And the first trend here is really around use cases and maturity. So this is based on some research we did with medium and large-size enterprises from around the globe. And what's interesting about this is, you know, there's a whole spectrum of use cases, some of which are more collaboration-oriented, some of which may be a little bit more social networking-oriented. The social networking stuff is, of course, very sexy, but you know, also and potentially quite valuable. But it also appears more towards the bottom of this chart. In other words, some of the more traditional use cases around project-oriented collaboration, knowledge-based management, communities of practice, external collaboration, those sorts of things, tend to be more mature within the enterprise, which is another way of saying that many of us are still really experimenting, first of all, within collaboration, but even more so with some of the more socially oriented and community-oriented use cases. And I think this is always worth reminding, because in many ways what we've seen is some of the pundits and thought leaders around this space may have moved on to other topics, but the reality is at an enterprise level, this is still early days for this stuff. And I can't tell you how many times we'll have an advisory call with one of our subscribers, big name subscriber, a company you would recognize, where they're saying, Tony or Kashyap, we feel really behind. We haven't been able to do this, we haven't been able to do that, we haven't seen this kind of adoption. And I have to constantly remind them, no, you're not behind. A lot of organizations are struggling at this, particularly once you get beyond a single use case. In other words, we can point you to scenarios where, or case studies where a single enterprise is able to be really effective with respect to, say, enterprise conversations or social Q&A. But very few of us are being really, are truly excelling across multiple different use cases. And I think that in this kind of self-assessment, it kind of bears that out. So I guess the sort of meta story, and you'll see this come up repeatedly over the next 20 minutes or so, is that this is still early days. A number of us are still figuring this out. A number of organizations are succeeding at some of these applications, but there's still a fair bit of work to do. Similar story around SharePoint. Just isolate what's happening with SharePoint around this whole space is that, excuse me just a second, is that it really mirrors, I think, a lot of what we see within the broader landscape, which is that people are using SharePoint for fairly traditional sorts of things around internal web content management, portals, project-oriented collaboration, a little bit less around external collaboration, much less around social networking and communities. Clearly, that's a little bit of a shortcoming of SharePoint as well. But it goes to show you, I think, that there's been really an emphasis with respect to SharePoint anyway in doing sort of meat and potatoes type stuff.